Hello and welcome everyone to English Listening Time. I am Liam and I am joined as always by the wonderful Maggie. How are you doing today, Maggie?
I am doing great, Liam. I am very excited for our session today because I am actually quite hungry, and I think our topic might make me even hungrier.
Well, that is usually the sign of a good conversation. We're going to be talking about going to a favorite restaurant, specifically for breakfast. But before we get into the eggs and bacon, how was your week?
It was very busy. I spent a lot of time working and trying to practice my English by listening to podcasts just like this one. I am finding that listening to authentic conversations is really helping me feel more comfortable with the rhythm of the language. Sometimes I just let the audio play while I'm cleaning my house, which I think you call passive listening.
That is a great strategy, Maggie. While some people say you must always focus 100%, researchers actually found that passive immersion can help your brain get used to the prosody and the natural flow of English. It's like keeping your brain in language mode. But of course, the best way to learn is when the topic is really interesting, or what we call compelling input, when you're so interested in the story that you forget you're studying.
Exactly. That happened to me yesterday. I was listening to a story about a travel adventure and I realized 20 minutes had passed and I understood almost everything. It felt like my brain was finally clicking.
That's the goal. Your brain is a powerful statistical machine, and it's constantly calculating the patterns of the sounds you hear. The more you listen, the more those sounds start to make sense as individual words, instead of just a big stream of noise.
Well, I hope my brain is ready to calculate some breakfast words today. So, Liam, tell me about your favorite breakfast spot. I know you love to eat.
Oh, you have no idea. There's this one place I've been going to for years. It's called the Sunnyside Diner. It's a very traditional American diner, which means it has those long, shiny metal counters and the big red leather booths. When you walk in, the first thing you notice is the sound. It's a beautiful chaos of clinking coffee mugs and the sizzle of the grill. I remember one specific Saturday morning last October. The air outside was very crisp and cold, so the warmth of the diner felt like a big hug. I sat down in my favorite booth right by the window where I could watch the steam rise off the coffee.
Wait a second, Liam. You said the air was crisp? I know that word for apples or potato chips, but can air be crisp?
That's a wonderful observation, Maggie. Yes, we often use the word crisp to describe weather that is cold and dry and very refreshing. It's the kind of weather that makes you want to wear a thick sweater and drink something hot. It's very different from a cold, rainy day, which feels heavy. Crisp air feels light and sharp.
I love that. Crisp air. I will try to use that next time I talk about the autumn. So, what did you order at this diner?
Well, at a place like the Sunnyside, you can't just order a small piece of toast. You have to go for the full experience. I ordered what they call the Grand Slam breakfast. It comes with 3 large pancakes that are as big as your head. They are so light and fluffy that they almost melt the moment the butter touches them. Then you have the eggs. I always get my eggs over easy.
Over easy? I've heard that before, but I'm always confused by how many ways there are to cook eggs in English. Can you explain over easy?
I would be happy to. This is where the vocabulary gets very specific. Over easy means the egg is fried on both sides, but the yellow part, which we call the yolk, is still liquid. So when you cut into it with your fork, the yolk runs out like a golden sauce. It's perfect for dipping your toast into. If you want the yolk to be hard, you would ask for over hard. And if you don't want them flipped at all, you say sunny side up.
Over easy, over hard, sunny side up. I'm repeating these because I want to make sure I remember them. This feels like what you told me about shadowing, where I repeat what I hear to help my mouth get used to the sounds.
Precisely. By repeating those phrases, you're building that neuromuscular connection. But let me get back to the story, because the best part of the meal wasn't the eggs, it was the hash browns. These are shredded potatoes that are fried until they're golden brown and very crunchy on the outside, but soft on the inside. At the Sunnyside, they cook them with little bits of onion and green peppers. The smell alone is enough to make a person travel for miles. I was sitting there enjoying my meal when the owner of the diner, a man named Artie, came over to my table. Artie is about 70 years old and has a voice that sounds like he's been eating sandpaper for breakfast. He looked at my plate and said, "Liam, if you finish those pancakes, I'll give you the next coffee for free."
That sounds like a challenge. Did you finish them?
It was a struggle, Maggie. American pancakes are very filling. They're like sponges that soak up all the maple syrup. I had to take several breaks. I sat there watching the other people in the diner. There was a young couple on a first date looking very nervous, an old man reading the newspaper cover to cover. Listening to the different conversations around me felt like being in a living library of stories. This is why authentic environments are so much better for learning than a textbook. In a textbook, everything is perfect, but in a real diner, people talk over each other and use fillers like or you know.
You're right. Sometimes when I hear real people talk, I realize they don't follow all the grammar rules I learned in school.
And that's actually okay. Real conversation is about negotiating meaning. It's about using context to understand the message even if the syntax isn't perfect. That morning with Artie, I realized that the diner wasn't just a place to eat. It was a place to belong.
That is a lovely way to put it, Liam. A place to belong. But I want to go back to some of the words you used in that story. You used the word authentic when talking about the diner. Why is that word so important for us learners?
Great question. Authentic means something is real and not manufactured for a specific purpose, like a classroom. When we listen to authentic conversations, we are hearing how English actually functions in the wild. We hear the hesitations and the way people use discourse markers like well or I mean to manage the flow of the conversation. These markers are like traffic signs for your brain. They tell you if the speaker is about to change the subject or if they are searching for a word.
I see. So when you say well, it gives my brain an extra second to process what you just said?
Exactly. Studies show that learners actually understand speech better when these markers are present because they provide processing time. It makes the input more comprehensible, which is the key to moving from your current level to the next level, or what we call I+1.
I+1. I remember you mentioned that before. I is my level, and the +1 is the new stuff I am ready to learn.
Spot on. Now, let us look at some of the other vocabulary from my diner story. I used the word savory. Do you know what that means in a food context?
I think so. Is it the opposite of sweet?
Usually, yes. Savory describes food that is salty or spicy rather than sweet. Breakfast is interesting because it's the one meal where we combine both. You have the savory bacon and eggs right next to the sweet pancakes with syrup. Another word I used was bottomless coffee. Can you guess what that means?
A cup without a bottom? That sounds very messy, Liam.
It does sound like a disaster, doesn't it? But in a diner, bottomless coffee means that the server will keep refilling your mug for free as long as you're sitting there. You pay for 1 cup and you can drink 10 if your heart can handle that much caffeine. It's a very American tradition.
10 cups of coffee. I think I would be shaking. But I have a question about the restaurant experience. When the server comes to the table, they often say something very fast. I struggle to understand them. Is there a common mistake learners make in that situation?
One big mistake is trying to translate every single word in your head. This creates a huge cognitive load. Instead of translating, try to use top-down processing. This means using your knowledge of the situation to predict what they will say. If a server is standing there with a pen and a notepad, they are probably asking for your order. They might say, "What can I get for you?" Or, "Are you ready to order?" You do not need to hear every syllable to know the meaning.
That makes sense. I should focus on the context. But what about the debate between sweet and savory for breakfast? I personally think pancakes are too much for the morning. I prefer something like a spinach omelet.
A spinach omelet is a very sophisticated choice. But here's the debate. Some people believe that breakfast is a treat. It's a reward for waking up and facing the day. For those people, sugar is the answer. They want waffles with whipped cream or French toast. Then you have the other group who thinks breakfast should be fuel. They want protein and fat to keep them full until lunch. I used to be a strictly savory person. I wanted my plate covered in black pepper and hot sauce. But as I get older, I find myself craving that bit of sweetness.
I think I'm the opposite. When I was a child, I wanted chocolate cereal every morning. Now, the thought of that much sugar at 8 in the morning makes me feel a bit sick. I need my eggs and my vegetables.
That reminds me of a very funny story from a few years ago. I was traveling in a small town, and I went into a breakfast place that was famous for its giant cinnamon rolls. Now, when I say giant, I mean the size of a dinner plate. I thought I could handle it. I sat down, and the waiter brought it out. It was covered in so much white frosting that I couldn't even see the bread. I took 2 bites, and I felt like I had enough energy to run a marathon. But by 10 o'clock, I had a sugar crash, and I fell asleep in the middle of a museum.
A sugar crash. That's a great phrase. It means when your energy disappears because you ate too much sugar?
Exactly. You feel very tired very suddenly. It was a lesson for me. Now I always make sure to balance my meal. If I have something sweet, I always have some protein like a side of sausage to keep my energy stable.
A side of sausage. A side means a small portion of something extra?
Correct. We call those side dishes. You might have a main dish like an omelet and then a side of fruit or a side of bacon. It's a very common way to order. You can say, "I'll have the pancakes with a side of bacon, please."
I'm writing that down in my mental notebook. I will have the pancakes with a side of bacon. It sounds so natural when you say it.
And that's why listening to these stories is so effective. You're hearing collocations, which are words that naturally go together, like side of bacon or bottomless coffee. Your brain learns these as one unit instead of separate words, which makes you much faster at speaking later on.
So, Liam, we have talked about your diner and the vocabulary of breakfast. How can our listeners actually use this information when they go to a restaurant?
Well, the first step is to practice what we discussed earlier, which is reducing your anxiety or lowering your affective filter. If you are too nervous, you will not be able to process what the server is saying. Remember that it is okay to ask for clarification. You can say, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Or, "What do you recommend?" Most servers are happy to help.
That is good advice. I often feel like I'm bothering people if I ask them to speak slower.
You are not bothering them at all. In fact, asking for clarification is a key part of the interaction hypothesis. It's called negotiating meaning. When you ask a question and the other person adjusts their speech, it makes the language more comprehensible for you, which leads to faster learning.
I also like the idea of using transcripts while listening to this podcast. I find that if I read the words while I hear your voice, it helps me understand where one word ends and the next one begins.
That is a very powerful technique called bimodal input. It helps with the segmentation problem, where speech sounds like one long continuous noise. But remember to eventually try listening without the text to challenge your ears.
I will try that. Now, I think you have one more story for us before we finish. You promised a final tangent.
I did. This story is a bit more personal. It is about my grandmother. She lived on a farm, and for her, breakfast was the most important event of the day. She would wake up at 5 in the morning to start cooking. By the time the rest of the family was awake, the kitchen smelled like a mixture of wood smoke and fresh bread. She didn't have a menu, but she knew exactly what everyone liked. She would make these tiny little silver dollar pancakes for the children. They were called silver dollar pancakes because they were the size of a large coin.
Silver dollar pancakes. That sounds so cute.
They were, and she would tell us that if we ate all of them, we would grow as tall as the corn in the fields. I remember sitting at that big wooden table with my cousins. There was no television and no phones. We just talked. We talked about the weather and the animals and what we were going to do that day. That is where I learned that a meal is not just about the food, it's about the connection. In our modern world, we often eat breakfast while looking at our screens or running to the bus. We lose that connection.
That is so true, Liam. I usually eat my toast while I'm checking my emails. It's not very relaxing.
Exactly. So my recommendation for the listeners is this. Next time you go out for breakfast, try to leave your phone in your pocket. Focus on the sounds of the restaurant. Listen to the way people greet each other. Pay attention to the rhythm of the language around you. You'll be surprised at how much you can learn just by being present in the moment. This is active listening in the real world.
I love that. My lesson of the day is that learning English is not just about books. It's about the eggs and the crisp air and the silver dollar pancakes. It's about living the language. I have learned so many new phrases today, like over easy and sugar crash and bottomless coffee. I feel like my tank is full of new words.
And that's the best place to be. Your tank is full of language fuel, and now you just need to go out and practice your speaking. Whether it's shadowing our voices or talking to a server, every little bit helps build your fluency.
Thank you, Liam. This was a wonderful session. I think I'm going to go find some pancakes now.
You've earned them, Maggie. And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us on English Listening Time. Keep listening and keep learning.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next time.
Goodbye.